Hello, friends, and welcome to Pour and Explore wine, food, and travel stories from around the world. I'm Nick Elliott, the Wine Guy. This is where we sip, savor, and wander through the world of wine, explore incredible food, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, you'll hear engaging conversations with wine pros, chefs, travelers, and fellow enthusiasts, plus educational episodes to help you sip smarter and explore deeper. So, grab a glass, pull up a chair, and let's pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. All right, everyone, welcome back to Pour and Explore. I am so thrilled that you are here with me today. I talk a lot on this show about getting out of your bubble. We talk about going to new places, seeing new things, and of course, tasting new flavors. But usually, when we travel, we think about eating at restaurants. We think about the finished product on the plate. But what happens when you step behind the counter? What happens when you invite yourself into a local's kitchen in Paris or Lisbon or a tiny village in Bulgaria? That is when you just stop visiting a culture and actually start participating in it. That's exactly what we're diving into today. I am joined by the wonderful Lorraine Ball. Now, you might know Lorraine from the business world. She hosted the popular marketing podcast, More Than a Few Words, for 15 years. But today, she's taking off her marketing hat and putting on her apron. Lorraine is absolutely serious, is a serious foodie and a talented photographer and a traveler who has made it a tradition to take cooking classes wherever she goes in the world. We have such a fun conversation in store for you today. We discuss why you should book a cooking class on day one of your trip and not day five. We talk about the difference between the big famous markets like the one in Florence versus the tiny, authentic pop-up markets in local neighborhoods, and so much more. And for the wine lovers out there, you're going to love a story she tells about Chardonnay in Austria. It is a perfect example of my golden rule. You drink what you like, but you don't know what you like until you try it. So get out there and try. We get into a great debate about American oak versus stainless steel and how travel changes your palate. Plus, if you're someone who loves taking travel photos, but feels like you're just snapping away on your phone, Lorraine drops a fantastic tip about an app that just might change your Instagram game. So pour yourself a glass of something delicious, sit back, and get ready to head into the kitchen. Here is my conversation with Lorraine Ball. Lorraine, I am so excited to have you on the show. Welcome to Pour and Explore.
Thank you. I am so excited to talk about food because it is one of my favorite things.
Absolutely. Who doesn't love talking about food and, of course, eating food? I'm excited for this conversation. You reached out to me and you had this great idea. You've had this great idea for a long time of traveling and taking cooking classes. Oh my goodness, what a revelation to get out there in the world, France, Italy, Vietnam, wherever you're going, taking a cooking class or two or three while you're out there doing your thing. Tell me how that became a tradition for you.
It are very well, we've taken a number of cooking courses here in the US. We love both my husband and I are foodies. We took a Chinese cooking class, we've taken an Italian cooking class, and then we took one that was Tangine cooking.
Yeah.
And so we really enjoyed all of those. So when we were traveling internationally and sampling all the food and just having so much fun with it, we ended up in Paris for 10 days and we had enough time in Paris and we saw all the things we wanted to see. And so I was flipping through TripAdvisor
Yeah.
and looking for something different.
Yeah.
And I found this cooking class and I went, this sounds cool. It was actually in this woman's home. So we got a chance to see how the average citizen of Paris lives. And it included a trip to the market.
Yeah.
So we got to go shopping with her. And then we did the cooking class. She gave us the recipes. There were about 6 people in her home. The food was fabulous.
I'm sure.
I was hooked. I absolutely was hooked. And so after that, every trip we've gone on, we really try to find cooking classes. And
Mhm.
there are different kinds of classes.
Yep.
And we've experimented with some different ones to see what do we like and how do we like it in the schedule. And I've learned to read the descriptions so I know
Mhm.
what I'm getting into, which is
Right.
also really important.
Yes. Is there anything that you've run into while you've been taking these classes? Just something, an unexpected lesson you've learned in a kitchen abroad?
One of the things, and this is not necessarily in the kitchen per se, when you're planning a cooking class, if you're going to be in a city for 2 to 3 days, you want to do the cooking class on day one. And the reason is because it will give you an introduction to the food, much more so than just the recipes you're learning. If it's a class with a lot of people, you'll get a chance to compare notes on what have you done? What have you seen? And so you can do some trip planning on the fly and maybe get some
Mhm.
hidden tips. You also, if the cooking class includes a trip to the market, doing that on day one gives you an opportunity maybe to go back later. When we were in Paris, we stayed at we had a little Airbnb because we were going to be there 10 days. We had a kitchen. Day 7 or 8, we were able to go and buy a few things and actually cook, not even the same dish, but wander through the market. We knew what we were looking for. So that's one of my favorite tips and my favorite learning. I also the seasonings and the spices, really paying attention to what are they using and how does that change as you go from Portugal to Greece, and how do the food textures change? And those were some of my really fun learnings.
Yeah, I can't say enough. I love the idea of cooking classes, and I especially love the idea of, even if you're not going to do a cooking class, go and visit markets in the towns that you go to. Some of the markets that I've been to the market in Paris. I've been to the big market in Paris, the market in Lyon in France. Florence has a beautiful market. It's absolutely stunning. Those are just some of the big ones, but you find these amazing, authentic markets in any big city in the world, even medium-sized cities in the world. You're going to be able to find this amazing thing with traditional foods and traditional spices and flavors and all of the things that go along with it. So I would highly recommend that anybody, even if you're just going to walk through, go to the market.
Ab
And
absolutely, and you know what I learned in Paris? In Paris, we didn't go to the big market. We went to a little neighborhood
yeah,
market, and they pop up on different days in
yes,
different places, and so you gotta do a little research to find out, is the market near you open on Tuesday or on
yes.
Wednesday?
Mhm.
I think you nailed it. I think the Florence market is it was one of my favorite in the world. It's so big and
Yes.
there's so much. I was a little bit more disappointed perhaps in the Athens market. It
Mhm.
just seemed a little bit smaller and I was spoiled because Paris had just been I'm sorry, Florence had been
Florence, yeah.
so good. Yeah. The other tip that I would give people if you're thinking about taking a cooking class, there are lots of them. Read the menu.
Yeah. Right.
Now, in Portugal, everybody makes fish stew because that is the traditional Portuguese dish. So no
Of
matter
course.
who you're going with, you're going to have fish stew.
Yep.
You don't like fish stew, maybe you shouldn't go to Portugal.
That's good advice.
Reading these descriptions and you're like, yeah, that doesn't sound good. That maybe that's not the place for you. Maybe you should go somewhere else. But like in Italy, there were a lot of pizza classes. I didn't want to go to a pizza class. So I had to read through until I found one that made like a little ravioli instead. And that was really much more to my taste. And
Absolutely.
and so taking the time and really reading the details, particularly if you're doing something in somebody's home, figuring out where it is, how you're gonna get there. It's gonna
Mhm.
be off the beaten path. leave yourself more time. But I love those intimate classes.
I think your point it lands really well because a lot of us have dietary restrictions or preferences, so on. And these classes are not necessarily going to change their ingredients to meet you where you are if you're not eating fish or you can't digest gluten or you're dairy free or things like that. It's definitely drill down, read the fine print. I think that's amazing advice. I was just sitting there as you were talking, remembering in my mind. I can't remember if it was in Rome or if it was in Florence. We did a cooking class and we did a very non-traditional eggplant parmesan. And it was more of a like a Napoleon where it was
Mhm.
eggplant stacked with the mozzarella sauce and basil and it was all fresh. It just came out of the market. Absolutely stunning. So I was remembering that as you were talking in my mind.
Yes. And I also look at the recipes and ask myself, is this something I'm going to make? And that was one of the things we did this class in Portugal in this woman's home. That's my most recent one. And the way she taught the class, she says, these are all foundation recipes.
Yes.
This is not the finished product. We're going to eat it. It's going to be delicious. When you go home, if you want to substitute this or that, and we've been back since we were there in May, and I've already made the salad and changed it.
Yeah.
And then I made the dessert. It was called a chocolate salami, which is
Hmm.
just fabulous. But she used dried fruit and I replaced it with nuts
Oh,
because that's that just sounded better to me.
absolutely.
And I've got a group coming next week, and I think the fish stew is going to be perfect for my book club.
Yeah.
And when we made it, she just went out into her little herb garden and she said, this is what I've got, but you can use this or this, but I have this fresh. So this is what we're eating.
Yes.
And those kind of classes that are less rigid, I really love because then it's something I can do at home and
Right.
relive that experience.
Yeah. And in my experience, usually instructor will send you home with a printed recipe of some at least one of the things that you've produced on that day. So you can take it back with you. And if you want to your point, substitute pork for beef or fish for chicken or for hazel or whatever they can absolutely do that. Not a problem at all.
Absolutely. The thing that the Italian class was really good. I liked the way they made their bolognese, but we made a ravioli, and I'm not going to make pasta from hand for him.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not. It was delicious. I loved it. There's a place here in town where I can get fresh pasta, and I will buy the ravioli and I will make the sauce.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, you have to mix and match, but it is just such a wonderful way to learn a little bit about the culture. The classes that we take in the cooking school, they
Mhm.
tend to be a little more structured. He's still very personable and a lot of fun, but there is a little bit more of the culture that
Yes.
comes through their platter. You learn a little bit more about the history. You learn about the history of the dish rather
Yes.
than just how to make it. And I find that fascinating.
Absolutely. And you're learning about food, you're learning about the culture, especially in those smaller classes that are
Mhm.
held in someone like an actual person's kitchen, an actual person's dining room. Those are amazing. It makes me think last year we did a river cruise through Eastern Europe, started in Romania and ended in Austria up to Danube. And one of my favorite experiences from that trip was actually in Bulgaria. We did a cooking class I couldn't even tell you the name of the town right now, in Bulgaria, in this woman's home, and it was her and her mother, who was probably 75 years old or whatever the case is, and they showed us how to make this dish called banitsa. And I brought that recipe home with me and made it. It's phyllo dough and yogurt and feta cheese and onions. You can add anything you want to it. And I love playing with that recipe now. And it's something you can do as a chef or not a chef. It's super. And those experiences just transcend everything. And it's so much fun. And what we got to learn about the culture of that area too was who knows anything about Bulgaria? I love Bulgaria. Bulgarian people are amazing, but I don't know anything about. So it was fun to sit down for a couple of hours and learn about their history and their culture and just to get to talk to them.
Absolutely. And I also I love getting a chance to talk to other travelers. So in the little bigger classes
Mhm.
where you get a chance to talk to people who are at a different place in their journey
Yes.
and compare notes on what have you seen? How did you get there? Was it worth doing? Where have you eaten? Because you're in this cooking class, you're not going to come back for the cooking class the next day. So, what restaurants have you been to? And getting that insider guide
Yeah.
to the city is just fabulous. And then, of course, I'm going to talk about your favorite subject. Every cooking class I've ever taken, there's always wine.
Always.
There's always wine. And when you're in another country and the wine list is so totally different than whatever you're used to, you don't know where to start. And getting someone who says, okay, so we're going to have this wine with this dish. Now you can be a little bit more courageous about ordering wines and trying wines and maybe even doing a wine tasting to round out your experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you more. That is absolutely the way to go, people. Have a little food, have a little wine, cook something new, and try something new. That's what life is all about. I talk a lot on the show about just getting out there and experiencing new things. We're so much in our own bubbles nowadays to get out there and experience something new, whether that's food, culture, wine, whatever it is, it's going to make you a better person.
Absolutely. And challenge some of your assumptions. One of my
Yes.
favorite wine tastings, we were in Austria and there were 6 wines and my husband and I decided we would just split one tasting. So we each took a sip, or maybe we did have 2 tastings, and the second or third wine was a Chardonnay, and I hate Chardonnay, or at least I thought I did. And so he pours the wine, and I said, "Just give him mine. I don't like Chardonnay." And the waiter looked at me and he said, "Oh, no, you don't like American
Yeah,
Chardonnay."
absolutely.
And I was like, "What's the difference?" He says, "You Americans like your oak. You make your bourbon in oak, you make your cabs in oak, you make your Chardonnay in oak." And I went, "I don't like bourbon. I don't like those heavy oak." He says, "Now, our Chardonnay is in stainless steel."
Yes.
And you know what? I really like European Chardonnay. And I would have missed out on so many wonderful experiences if that waiter had not explained the difference to me.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
me being open enough to say, all right, we'll give that a try.
Let's give it a try.
Mhm.
Well, a bunch of years ago, when I was making wine up in Monterey County, we had a vineyard of probably about 3 acres of
Mhm.
Chardonnay.
Mhm.
And 1 year, or actually 2 years in a row, we had a glut of Chard that was happening. It was growing really well. So we knew that we were only going to need so many bottles of our traditional estate Chardonnay, which had a little bit of oak, a little bit of new oak, a tiny bit of malolactic fermentation. For those who know what malolactic fermentation is, I'm not going to explain it here. Go listen to it. But what did we do with the rest of that wine? We decided to do stainless steel only Chardonnay. Those couple years we did it back to back, and it became our biggest seller. Surpassed the estate Chardonnay, surpassed the Pinot Noir that we were making. It was people just absolutely loved it, and Chardonnay, like drilling Chardonnay down to its bare minimum. Chardonnay has, and this is me nerding out as a sommelier, it has a very unique flavor profile to
Mhm.
it. And what we've done in California, we've manipulated the Chardonnay so much as to vinify that quality out of it or to cover it up, if you will.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the oak overpowers the natural flavor of the Chardonnay.
yeah.
Now, the American palate, a lot of Americans like bourbon. We like that. We like that very strong flavor. I don't. And so it's not a matter of good or bad. It's a matter of what your preference is. And for me, traveling and trying different things has helped me figure out what are my preferences.
Absolutely. My motto on my show, and my listeners know I say it every single episode, probably several times an episode. You drink what you like. Everybody, you drink what you like. But there's a caveat. You don't know what you like until you've tried a lot of things.
Mhm.
The fact that you like Sauvignon Blanc doesn't mean that you're not going to like Chablis, which is
Mhm.
French Chardonnay, or something from South Africa, or what I can, the list goes on and on. I could go on for hours about that, but you don't know until you try it. So I think we're on the same page. Get out there and taste, whether it's wine, whether it's food, get out there and experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Staying on the food topic for just another minute, has there been a meal, whether it's been in a restaurant or in a cooking class that you've taken, that has changed your perspective on a place?
I have two meals that come to mind.
Please.
The first is Delphi in Greece. It is really a tiny little place. There are three streets. And Rick Steves, God love him, talked about this little restaurant. And one of my favorite foods is lamb chops.
Yeah.
And they had lamb chops at this tiny little restaurant that were cooked to perfection. I don't want to have, I've been eating lamb chops since I'm 3 years old, and my uncle was a butcher and he'd bring me home a lamb chop. You know what good lamb chops should taste like. And I have never had lamb chops any better than this. And they were thin sliced, odd shaped, grilled to perfection. And it was this tiny little restaurant in this tiny little town with three streets.
Yeah.
And the second one that comes to mind was in Portugal. The town is called Obidos. It is about halfway between, maybe 2/3 of the way between Porto and Lisbon. It is a tiny little town. There's a castle there at the top of the hill. You can't even drive the car. You have to park the car or have your driver drop you off at the tourist office, and then you walk up the hill to your hotel. And there are two streets. And we were looking where to go for dinner. And my husband went down to the desk and he says, "Where do you think we should go?" And the owner of the bed and breakfast said, "I would go. This is my favorite restaurant. I would go here." And he said, "Oh, that was on the list." And then I saw this other one, and she looked at him and she said, "That's nice too." And just the whole way she said it immediately told me we needed to go to this little restaurant. You get there and you get to the door, you walk up this little flight of stairs, and you come up on the second floor, and there's maybe 10 tables and a wall of windows with a spectacular view, and had a veal dish. And veal can be tough if it's
Yes.
not cooked well. And
Absolutely.
this was the most tender veal with the lightest sauce. It was by far and away, and we'd had a lot of good food on that trip. That was the best meal that we had. And so it's just this running joke that now we're like, okay, which town are we going to go to that's only going to have two streets? Because that's where we're going to have to eat. Because there will be
Absolutely.
one restaurant with great food on one of those two streets.
It sounds like the little town that I lived in Central California forever. There were two main streets and a couple of cross streets through it. And we lived there for 15 years, and there were four, sometimes five restaurants, depending on who was open, will close, and restaurants come and go, and things like that. And thankfully, they were all always amazing, all of the restaurants. So those little hidden gems in these little
Mhm.
towns, I can't say enough about.
And I'm gonna give you one more. I grew up in New
Please.
York City, and there are tons of restaurants. Everything in the theater district sucks. If you're gonna go to a play, have lunch in a nice restaurant and go have a drink before the show. Do
Yep.
not eat in the theater district. But in all the little neighborhoods, there are these wonderful, and there is a Ukrainian restaurant
You.
on the east side, probably 20th. No, certainly no further north than 20th. But if you search Ukrainian restaurant, and they make the best pierogies. One of the few places left in New York that can make a good egg cream.
Amazing. Amazing. My wife and I just had Ethiopian for the first time
That's
long ago. Yeah, that's a fun way to eat with the fermented bread, and it's all stew and rice. And yeah, it's, oh my God, I could go on forever about that experience.
And it's a little weird the first time you do it because there's no silverware and people don't know
Right,
what to do with that.
right.
How do I pick up? And the consistency is very similar to Indian food where there's a
Yes.
lot of sauce, and learning how to use the bread as your silverware is definitely interesting.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Let's switch gears a little bit because you're not only a world traveler and a huge foodie, you've got this awesome podcast called More Than a Few Words. Tell us a little bit about that.
More Than a Few Words is a marketing conversation. I've been doing it about 15 years. I started it when I was running an agency. I thought it would be a nice outgrowth of what we were doing. And I loved it so much. And I loved the conversations that I was having and the people that I was meeting. When I sold the business, I had actually spun the podcast and some online training resources off into a separate business so that they could buy my client list, they could buy my processes. They could not buy my podcast. That was not for sale.
Got it.
And like I said, I've been doing it for 15 years. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. It really is geared for marketing pros and marketing beginners, talking about what's hot, what's working, what's not working. And I really just love it.
I've had over the last several days, so it's very timely to this conversation. I've had over the last couple of days had great conversations with Zennials, Gen Z folk who are wine focused. And the conversation was really about how is the wine market, and specifically talking about the wine market, changing their ways to become more accessible to younger generation. So from your perspective, let's look at the big picture. And there's the obvious social media, et cetera, et cetera. How is marketing gearing its way towards the younger generation?
I There is a lot, and particularly I think wine is a good example. It is a product that you don't know a lot about. We all drank terrible cheap wine when we were younger and
Oh, we
didn't
did.
know any and we didn't know any better. So I think that good wine marketing is education. Guy Vaynerchuk was way out there a decade ago when he started doing that, or 2 decades ago, however long he's been running around making those videos. But he recognized that people were intimidated and they are still intimidated. And so making it accessible, I think the use of influencers is challenging because there's a lot of garbage out there.
Yes.
But if you get people who are genuine, who are a little knowledgeable, I think it works well. I think that user generated content in marketing is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do because it has a level of authenticity. So inviting people to share their favorite wines and their favorite wine experiences and being a conduit for that
Yep.
conversation rather than push on your brand.
Yep.
And I think the platform that is going to be very interesting is Reddit.
Okay.
Because you can cultivate those kind of conversations, that user generated content. And we are seeing a shift because AI, and particularly Google's AI, is
Mhm.
indexing Reddit. If you do a Google search now, you will get those AI overviews, and all of a sudden, Reddit is popping up.
Fascinating.
And
Fascinating.
Reddit really is a young people's platform.
Right.
I think TikTok for influencers, but as a brand, it's so hard to break through. I still like, for that younger audience, I still Instagram. I think you can
Yeah.
tell stories and have some good user generated content on Instagram.
Yeah.
And the reality is, this stuff's going to change in a minute.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's an amazing point. And that's where I have a hard time personally with social media because it's always changing. Algorithms are always changing and trends are always changing and the music is always changing. And it's so hard to keep up with. And as a business owner, I'm in that area in my business where I have to do everything myself. I don't have to, but I choose to do a lot of things myself, including social media content, because I can't afford to go out and spend however much money it costs to do a big social thing, big social push. And I love hearing about things like Reddit that I've not heard that one before, so that's awesome. And I said it on the very last episode that I put out there is there is so much junk out there. And you said it earlier, there is so much junk and it's hard to get through the noise. And I would also add that it's also hard, at least for me, to know what is authentic and what's not. Who's just getting out there and saying, hey, this pair of scissors is awesome. But they've never used the scissors. They don't care about the scissors. They have no ties to the scissor company other than they get a paycheck for saying, hey, these great scissors.
I think that from a company perspective and from a solo entrepreneur, you have to give yourself permission to say, I'm not going to be everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm
of course.
just not going to be everywhere. And I loved Twitter back in the day, but Twitter
Mhm.
is a cluster, but I've let it go. And Threads is a nicer Twitter, but nobody's really doing much there. Um, for my business, I made the decision, LinkedIn and Instagram for my younger female audience makes a lot of sense. I am watching Reddit, but I am not playing there yet. And I really want to take Facebook back to it being about my friends. When I ran a digital agency for 19 years. When I ran the agency, I had a very public Facebook page. I accepted all sorts of requests from people I met in the community. And I've spent the last 5 years unfriending them because they're not my friends.
Yeah.
You want to talk business? Let's go over to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I have, I don't know, 11,000 followers there. Fine. But giving myself permission to do that has really helped me manage my time.
Yeah. My very first Facebook profile, I literally just abandoned because it just got filled with so much junk and so much noise and so on. I said, I got to start over and I'm going to be much more select
I
on who
call
I let into my little bubble.
I call it the birthday unfollow. If I get a birthday reminder, hey, it's Bob Smith's birthday, and I'm like,
Yes.
I don't really know who Bob Smith is.
Right.
So unfollow. Yeah, I just let it go. I've tried to do a couple of Facebook groups. They are so hard to manage.
Yeah.
And again, the return wasn't there.
Yeah.
So let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing recently. I had a Facebook group for my wine guy business, and yeah, I had some followers, but there was very little engagement and so on. And it wasn't worth my time any
Mhm.
longer to do it. Yeah, absolutely. So again, the podcast is called More Than a Few Words. You can find that on favorite podcast platform. So definitely get over there. If marketing interests you at all, great conversations that Lorraine's having. So get over there and check that out. I want to switch gears again because just reading your bio and looking at your website and everything, you are a very talented photographer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. What's your photography that captures personality and place? Where did this love for photography come from and where is it going?
So I got my first real camera, not the little Kodak Instamatic. It was probably 21 or 22. And I loved taking pictures. I loved doing black and white. The challenge was I was broke and film was expensive. And so it really wasn't until digital became a thing that I could really explore the way I wanted to photography. And it goes hand in hand with my travels.
Of course.
I love
Yes.
to take pictures, and I have some catching up to do from some of my trips this year. I love architecture. I love landscapes. I'm a flower geek, and I just really enjoy it. I took 2 mobile photography courses,
Mhm.
2 photographers who I think are incredibly talented. And because I had been shifting away from my camera because it's just clunky when you're traveling. But so my last 2 trips, it's all been mobile, and I have a couple of apps that I love. I've had some of my photos in some shows. I've even sold a picture or 2. So thank
Congratulations.
you. So that's been fun. And but what I am doing now is we have this wonderful bird feeder out back, and I just recharge the batteries on my real camera, and I can just sit out there in the morning or sit out there in the evening and just shoot to my heart's content. And the zoom is so much better. And there are
Wow.
things you can do with a real camera that you can't do even with the latest versions of the iPhone and the Droid. But my uncle traveled the world and was a phenomenal photographer. And when you say it to him, he would laugh and he would open up a box, and in the box are all the photos he didn't show you.
Oh,
Take as many photos as you want, but you have to be selective.
yes.
And that really, when I travel, I only do 2 or 3 photos a day that I shoot 200. But you're gonna get my favorite 3 to 5, and people think I'm just this fabulous photographer. I am a very good editor.
Photoshop is our friend.
But actually, I love, on my iPhone, and it's available on Droid as well, it's called Snapseed.
Snapseed. Okay. Yeah.
And it will do amazing. Once you learn how to use it, and they just upgraded it,
Mm.
which I love. I love upgrades, but I got to learn how to use it all over again.
Right.
They've moved around my favorite features, but the things that I can do with just that simple, and it's free,
Yeah.
vignettes, just brightening up people shots and cropping and my favorite is when you take a picture of a very tall building, you will always notice that the building leans back.
Yes.
With Snapseed, you can change that perspective and straighten the building.
Oh, really?
And it's not always perfect, but if you shot it well, you can put, and you're just like, damn, that looks really good.
Well, that's great advice. Snapseed with a D at the end.
Yeah, yeah, like
Okay.
the little logo is a leaf.
Okay. All right. I definitely want to check that out because I'm getting into a little more social media and things. I find those programs, those apps to be really helpful to straighten things out or fix the color, things like that. I use Canva a lot for that. And they've got a lot of great tools in there. While we're on the subject, speaking of technology, it sounds like you're moving over to using your phone a lot more. Have you found any accessories to go along with your phone photography that have been helpful to you?
I did have a Zoom kit on one of my earlier ones. And just honestly, I when I'm traveling, I want to be very in the moment. I want to capture the photo, but I really just want to whip that phone out of my pocket,
Yep.
take the photograph, and get back to what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Because there was a period there where I felt like I was seeing whole cities through the lens of my phone.
of course.
And I really we just did a bicycle trip. So it forced me to look around and look at more of the scenery and be very deliberate about where I stopped to take pictures.
Love it. All right, just a few more questions, and this is going to be our lightning round, Lorraine. You ready for me?
Okay. I'm
All right,
ready. Let's do it.
fantastic. The most overrated food trend, in your opinion?
Mm. Okay. I live in Indiana.
Yep.
Everything here is fried. And the state fair, oh my God, they go through these contests to see how ridiculous fried Twinkies. No, don't dip it in oil and coat it. No, fried.
There's a great comedian named Tom Papa, and I believe he talks about getting to Indiana, and he says there's cheese on everything, and you know what? No matter what you order from the menu, you want cheese on that.
Yeah. Well,
Cheese
yeah.
on it, fried instead of-
Cheese is a little bit more Wisconsin, but the state food is a fried pork tenderloin. So that should tell you something.
Yes, absolutely. All right, cooking class in a bucket list destination. Where are you going next?
So I think our next, we're debating, but I think our next is going to be a bike trip that starts in Latvia and ends in Lithuania. We're going to be in Riga and down to Vilnius. So
Okay.
I definitely want to do cooking classes in both of those locations. And then we also are talking about Southern Italy and Corsica. And
Yeah,
I want to do Sicilian, real Sicilian.
absolutely. Have a little Amira d'Avola while you're there. Three ingredients that define your cooking style.
Okay, so I am by heritage Eastern European Jewish. Onion goes with everything. I had somebody come for dinner one time and I was cooking and he says, I don't eat onions. I'm like, I don't know what you're going to eat.
A jar of peanut butter in the
I got butter and bread. How we do? I love fresh basil. I grow it every summer. And third, what's my third go to? That one probably changes a little bit more with the trend. Right now, it's a dried seasoning. It's an herb de Provence. So it's
Oh,
got
yeah.
a little lavender. It's got some really nice things in there. Of course, I just read Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, and he goes on a rant about any of those dried spices.
Right.
Throw them away.
Yes.
Some of them are pretty good, but I
Okay.
would say right now, those three I tend to find myself reaching for them a lot.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And last question, best meal that you've ever had under $5?
Ooh. Okay, it's gotta be street food.
Yes.
It might be an authentic Israeli falafel in one of the Arab markets with the real hummus ball shoved in the pita, lettuce, and the sauce and the tomato. Just that handheld falafel. Don't serve it to me on a plate. I don't know
Right.
what to do with the plate. Give it
Right.
to me in a good piece of falafel, wrapped because it's gonna fall apart.
Yes.
But that might be my favorite.
Oh, I love that answer. I love that answer. Lorraine, thank you so very much for being on Port Explorer. It's been awesome talking with you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
This was so much fun. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. That was Lorraine Ball, and I hope you are as hungry and thirsty as I am. I really loved her perspective on reading the menu before you book a class. It sounds so simple, right? But she's right on the spot. And if you don't like fish stew, maybe don't book the traditional Portuguese class just because it's authentic. It's okay to find the experience that fits your palate, like the ravioli class you found in Italy instead of just doing another pizza night. And I have to circle back on that Chardonnay story. It is such a validation of what I talk about here. She thought she hated Chardonnay just because she associated it with the heavy, oaky American style. But one waiter in Austria challenged her to try a stainless steel vintage, and it changed her mind completely. And that is the magic of travel. It strips away your assumptions and lets you taste things for what they really are. If you want to hear more from Lorraine, especially if you are interested in the business side of things, go check out her podcast, More Than a Few Words, wherever you listen to your audio. And for those of you trying to capture your own travels, don't forget her recommendation to check out the Snapseed app for editing your photos on the go. As always, I want to challenge you this week. Go to a local market, buy an ingredient that you've never cooked with, or grab a bottle of wine from a region that you can pronounce and get out of that bubble and experience something new. Thank you so much for listening to Pour and Explore. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. Please smash that like button, that follow button, that subscribe button. I would very, very much appreciate it. And until next time, everybody, keep wondering and wondering. Have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Pour and Explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your stories or questions. Drop me a message at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everybody.